Just finished up playing Pantheon. Alright, what can I say about this? Let's talk about components first. Mix things up each time, you know, making sure that you never know what you're getting to. Cards are nice. Actually, I find them very pretty. I really, I wish there were more different pictures on them, but that would probably confuse the game and make it, you know, a more complex and annoying thing to play. But I especially like the, I don't know, the sacrifice cards, but even the feet and stuff are kind of cool. And they're well done and well executed. Nice, easy to shuffle, and fairly solid, and they'll last me as many playings as I'm going to have. Bag is not unpleasant to touch. That's important. The counters themselves are very, again, nice quality stuff. Overall, I think the game component-wise works out pretty well. Trying to think if there was anything that disturbed me in any sense. I can't think of anything. I think it was all visible, all very easily discernible while we're playing, and they did what they need to. You know, the only issue that I have is kind of the, hey, having to keep some of your pieces in a pooled reserve. I keep them in the bag. That's kind of an annoyance. They could go in the box. The insert holds space for all that. You could easily keep your bank in there. But whatever. The board itself, well, it's not too pretty, but again, it's functional. I mean, it's not unattractive. And the back is kind of cool. I guess my biggest gripe is what I knew before I bought it, which is this is not really about what it's about. You know, it's a pure Euro. It's about as thematic as Tigris and Euphrates, which is to say you get to watch a culture spreading. But, you know, you don't even have that link to the gods. You have gods in front of you. Gods give you things, but what you are isn't really clear, and those gods don't feel terribly associated with a culture. This is a game that is just there as a game, and whatever backdrop there is pretty much unimportant to the actual play of the game. You know, I mean, it's sad when something like Acquire feels much more linked to its theme than what you're playing, yet you have some sort of theme or subject to a game. That disturbs me. The rules themselves are too filled with colors and descriptions, examples. Your setup is a picture. I hate when this is done, but, you know, it's a simple enough game that, hey, you know, if you watch my intro video, you can see about how enjoyable it is to deal with the rule book. But with the quantity of base rules that there are, this could all have been put on a little sheet of paper. You know, one page or one page double-sided could have handled the core of the rules very simply. The player aids don't have enough to explain the whole game, but they have enough once you know the rules to be able to play it. Good box. Alright, what else? What about the actual play? So one of my worries about it is I think that, first of all, it's a very opportunistic game, which I like. I like games where I don't have to make my grand strategy up ahead of time, although maybe I could focus on just one thing. I don't think this is a game that rewards focusing on one thing, on specializing. I think it's a game that very much rewards grabbing what's there and what's available, what you can get. Take what you can while you can. Don't plan too far ahead. There may be times where you can kind of save up to do something better, but usually it's pretty obvious. It's a matter of, oh, I could have nothing but work my way towards something, or I could hold and build up towards that something directly and take it all at once. And I think in general you want to do the latter. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're partially buying. So those decisions are often very hard on me, and I like being relieved of any real requirement to think in that level. It does have an issue, I think, towards the end with being a little bit calculable. Not so much in the sense that you can tell who's going to win, because you got hidden pieces, in terms of the minor gods. And you also don't know what the other player is going to be able to pull off on their last turn. Maybe they can buy a god that you weren't expecting or whatever. More in the matter of you can look and figure out what your best move is to a T at the end of the game. At the beginning of the game, you can't. You don't know whether or not it's going to be more important to grab that foot early and be able to move quicker throughout the whole game, get additional movement every time somebody picks a movement action, or if you want the god and the limited points, but maybe the advantage that god brings, or, just if you want to get your columns down earlier without regard to some of the advantages. All of those are kind of up in the air, and you can't know because there's enough randomness in the game. It's not a very random game, but there's enough randomness that it is actually, I think, impossible to completely judge how good certain moves are. You can look and say, yeah, I want to get my feet up so that I can move more quickly throughout the game. Or I want to get my card draw ability up. Or whatever. But those things are all somewhat tempered by the randomness that occurs throughout the game. Towards the end, I think that randomness pretty much disappears. First of all, there's the simple fact that the columns largely will have been taken. Possibly not. It's possible that the whole game has gone with people aiming towards the gods all the way. It doesn't feel to me like you want to concentrate just on columns. The blue player in my game kind of did that. And they didn't get them all. And not getting them all isn't enough. And I doubt that you want to concentrate just on gods, because if you fall behind on the columns, that's a lot of points. You want to kind of be in that mid-range. You want to be in the competition with the columns in the same level as all the other people who are competing, but you want to do the best within that in terms of you can probably do better by picking up some other things. You have a lot of interesting choices, though. A lot of different little options. Hey, do I want to go for the god now, or do I want to get the column now? Either way, I have to plan ahead. Which one do I aim for? And largely, again, it's opportunistic in that you kind of can look at your hand and say, well, I'm better along this route, so I'll go for this one. Rather than, geez, I just like columns, I'm going to go for them no matter what. Nah, that doesn't really work too well. It more is kind of you look at your hand and see that. But it is disappointing to me in that it is basically an abstract game with kind of maybe some sort of, you can see a story of the growth of civilization, but it doesn't really make too much sense. The rules themselves, again, not just the component, the quality of the writing or the texture of the material that the rules are on, but the actual rules, I feel, have a few fuzzy points on them. I'm sure somebody's clarified all those. Knowing Board Game Geek, it tends to be a great repository for that stuff. But for me, I kind of like to pick up a rule book and just read it and not have to walk into the other room or whatever and try to figure out, hey, what is the accepted version for this? I must know that. Got a funny hole in my shelf. Anyway, overall, this is a game that I enjoy a good deal from the couple of times I've played it. I like the kind of thought in it. It doesn't tax me over much. It makes for a nice break in between, a heavier fare. It says 60 to 90 minutes. I think that's about right. You're not thinking too hard. So it's not like those Euros, where you can just really, really feel like you can calculate every damn thing out if you just thought hard enough. You know, it really isn't along those lines. It doesn't, until the very end, it doesn't even tax me solo. Towards the end, you can see I was having trouble describing what happened because my mind was, there were more parts to every action. The actions became more complex in terms of what they formed. That's a general tendency to these kind of games. You know, I played Puerto Rico recently, and boy, does that kind of snowball into something more complex as you go. But this isn't too bad with that. Certainly not as a player. It's just the trying to remember the whole cycle in one thing. What else can I say about it? I'm not sure. I don't feel like there's anything driving of interest in this that's going to, you know, I don't think people are going to say, oh, I want to figure out how to win this. So, for example, Tigris and Euphrates, I can really see saying, all right, I think I can, you know, really take this tack, or I can do, you know, I can do a different kind of opening and kind of skew the game in that direction. I don't feel like you have that ability in this. So it's a less interesting game than that in that sense. I don't think it's the kind of thing that people are going to want to bring to the table again and again and again. But for me, it works. You know, I buy Euros largely for this kind of, hey, I just want to play something, fiddle around with some pieces, make some choices that don't really matter too much, but that aren't, you know, at that, there's nothing in the choice issue. And that works well for me in a lot of ways. Now, playing opposed, I'd rather something with a lot more interaction than this has. But playing solo, it's pretty good. And playing, you know, I don't know, something this short, I'm not sure. Playing opposed, it really matters too much how much negotiation there is anyway. All right, up it goes, whatever I have to say.